Maine. Do you have any advice for people who want to go into the music field?
Um, I do. I think you have to really love it. And I know it sounds very cliche. It is generally a very hard career to make, as you know. But when you love what you're doing, then, I'm sure you can persevere and anything can happen. But it's certainly not a money-making career. And it's a career where, as I said, 1 month I can have 5, 6 concerts, and another month I can have 0 concerts. So psychologically, it's very different from a 9 to 5 job. So you have to be really prepared for that. That's number one. And number two, if I had to give advice to maybe, I don't know if Sally is younger, or repertoire, I would recommend to learn as much repertoire as possible while you're still young. You're in high school, you're in college, because it really stays with you, as you probably know. Whatever you learn sort of before the age of 25 or 30, it stays with you for the rest of your life. Whatever you start learning later, you become busy with concerts, you don't have as much time, your memory may be not the same as it is when you're a young person. So for me, that's just an advice I would have given myself as a young person. It doesn't need to be perfect all the time, but just learn as much repertoire as you can, and then you're ready. You have a huge choice, when you're called to play a concert, you can choose from many pieces or concertos.
And going back and forth, going and seeing as many performers as you can, just witnessing great artists of every genre. Go to the opera, go to the symphony.
Yes,
just be a
yes.
part of music and watch as much as you can, because to absorb all of that is so important. And I loved in your opening about when you were talking about your experiences, you were surrounded by just great artists. And
Yes, I was very lucky because, my father was also writing about a lot of musicians, so I got to meet a lot of them personally, and I even feel bad because, we would always go backstage, and how people would get autographs.
Sure.
And I always felt, why do I need to get an autograph from this person when I know them so well and they come to my house? So as a result, I don't have, the only autograph I do have and I cherish, when in 1986, Vladimir Horowitz came to Russia.
Wow.
And I was so lucky. I came to there was an open rehearsal. There's a film about it on YouTube, and there's a rehearsal and the concert. So I was at the rehearsal, which was even better because he played a repertoire for about 3 concerts there. It was a 3-hour rehearsal. And I do have his amazing autograph where he was born in Russia, but he left a long time ago. So he mixes Russian and English letters when he writes to Julia from Vladimir Horowitz. So it's something I, treasure. But I have to say that people who study music now, they're so lucky because they have YouTube, they have Spotify, and they can see an old recording, they can see a new recording, they can have their own recording on the YouTube. It's something we did not have when we were growing up. There were live concerts and LPs or CDs. That's that. So that's where our experience. So it's a good and bad. But right now, even when I prepare a piece or I practice and I want to hear, I don't know, Tchaikovsky trio with, Gilels, Rostropovich, and Kogan. Here it is. So, we have this great opportunities. So if you love music, there's so much to do. Even, now you can listen to the whole musical repertoire online now.
It's incredible. YouTube has really changed everything. I know. Yes. You can listen to, as opera singers, they can listen to every high note by every tenor of that same phrase. Sometimes in a single video, someone's compiled these things, and you can listen to. Yes. As a conductor, I love to, whenever I prepare something new, I love to see the historical parameters of my predecessors. I'll watch Claudio Abbado, and I'll watch some of the great conductors approach those phrases, and it goes back so far in history. It's really an amazing testament that we can really use in our industry.
Yes, we're very lucky, I think, in that way.
Do you remember drop the needle exams? We had them as a music major. We have music history. They'd take a record and they would drop the needle, and you had to identify what it was. My undergraduate students at Seton Hall have no idea what that means. They think I'm a dinosaur.
Yes. Well, of course, I have to say there were fewer recordings back then, and we all knew them. we all knew, who did all the Mahler symphonies. So the choice wasn't, whatever was recorded. And, it's good and bad because now on YouTube, they're great recordings, and they're recordings that, honestly, we wouldn't publish, as musicians. Everybody has a right to do so. And on that note, I have to say that I would like to invite everybody to visit and subscribe to my channel, Julia Zilberquit, juliazilberquit.com. It also has some very, very rare recordings. I also recorded a solo CD, which is called Mystery of Bagatelles. And it sort of follows the history of that piece. Bagatelles really means a trifle in French. But, I have recordings from Couperin and Beethoven, and then Liszt. There's a Liszt waltz that's called Bagatelle. There's Bartok, there's Saint-Saëns, and then there's Russian composers, not as well known, Cherepnin and Denisov and Lyadov, of course. So it's a whole sort of anthology of the Bagatelle.
Fun.
And it's on also on iTunes and of course on my channel. So enjoy listening to it.
So what other projects have you come up with in your isolation and in your quarantine and time with family? Have you come up with any new projects? Are you starting any new ideas? Or things starting to gel? What's happening?
I am thinking about doing something also sort of a rearrangement of some Tchaikovsky pieces that I shall not name right now.
Okay.
But it's not my own arrangements. I just got the music recently, so I'm thinking about that. There's always a question of a demand, and if the label wants to produce it, or do you have to produce it yourself? So there's that. Both options are open for me, and I would generally love to record that Beethoven concerto, but it needs a little bit more, because of this pause right now that we all took. It will also need to wait. I am learning the two new trios, as I told you, one by Joseph Bardanishvili and another one is by Gia Concelli. Wonderful, wonderful composers, and it's very nice. And those trios there's two versions in each. It's a piano, two violins, and an orchestra, or piano, violin, and cello. So there's this option. So I have to learn different music for the same trios, and I'm really looking forward to performing them. I think it's very important for us as artists, as educators, to perform contemporary music that's written by our contemporaries, by our colleagues, and by a great composer. So I'm very happy that I am doing that finally. And also just repeating some old pieces that I haven't been able, didn't have a chance to play for a while. It's like visiting old friends,
I find the same thing whenever I approach a piece I've done, so like especially Verdi for me, because I've done a lot of Verdi in my career. Whenever I come back to it, it's like looking at a painting a different way. I get a completely different interpretation than I thought of it 5 years ago, because I'm older, I view things differently, and my worldview has changed. I think that we shift as artists, so it's just like looking at great art.
I agree with you. And as a matter of fact, for example, that Mozart concerto that we did, I did it first in school, then I did it after my competition, then again. So, every time you approach it, you remember, you sort of remember the past, you bring in the future. So it's kind of, a story of your life within a piece, right? Your feeling towards it, how you change, hearing of it changes, how, you find, I don't know, some new harmonies that are not new, but you hear them in a whole
and it changes the articulation and the overall interpretation entirely.
Agree. So there's two recordings of if I put my own recordings of, I don't know, 20 years ago, 10 years ago, 5 years ago, and now they're all different.
So I was looking at a painting. So I hear that you're really into art. So tell us about your love of art and how that's affected you as a musician.
I love collecting things. I collected little things, big things, and at some point, I grew up with paintings. My father had a collection of theater, theater decoration paintings, for which Russian painters are very famous. Then he had a lot of etching, very old etching. So I grew up sort of surrounded by art in all forms and shapes. So I started collecting, I would say me and my husband, I don't know, 20 years ago or so. And first it was just random paintings that we liked, and then it took a shape of a theme. So basically my collection has to do with a movement that was called Second École de Paris. So it's the artists from Eastern Europe, from Russia and Eastern Europe of Jewish origins that ended up in Paris. They studied in Paris, they lived in Paris in 1920s and 30s. And then some of them immigrated to America, luckily. Some of them unfortunately perished, during the World War II and the Holocaust. So there's a lot of different, different lives there, different painters. So I have a nice collection. It started sort of with a Russian artist and then it expanded. And it's very interesting to learn about those people, to learn, how they're artistic and, also how they change through the years if they're lucky enough to live a long life. I would say a couple of names that are just very well known in that, like Marc Chagall or Chaim Soutine. Now, I don't have big works by those artists because they're just very expensive. But this is sort of the direction that they gave. There was a lot of young artists who looked up to them or who studied with them. So it's wonderful. It's been my sort of hobby for years. And of course, now with COVID, everything stopped and my collecting also stopped as well. But I'm sure it will resume.
Do you get inspiration from looking at those certain paintings? How does that affect your music making?
I do. I even have some paintings that have to do with music, not all of them. I have a wonderful a pianist and a trio by a lady named Esther Karp. And then I read about her. She was living in Poland. And she actually ended up in an asylum, just like Van Gogh, and she loved music. Apparently she was a musician. She was also an artist. So, you look at those paintings, of course you draw an inspiration, and it's always nice to, I cannot say that I associate a certain piece of music with a certain paintings, as some people do, but it's just a general, I would say general direction, and it's just been a wonderful hobby. I always find it more relaxing to go to an art exhibit rather than maybe a concert or an opera, because in a concert or an opera, I'm starting to hear, if I like it, if I don't like it, are they hitting the right notes, if you like the interpretation. So it becomes you do open-minded. I love when my friends perform. I'm not very critical of them when they do it because, but I do find art, a visual art, for me, it's more inspirational and more relaxing, and it's just something, that I love doing.
Well, I always love to take a break and go walk in a museum, and I can lose myself in a museum for hours, and I don't feel like I'm working. Just like you said, I feel like I'm always on the clock if I'm at an opera, and I always meet colleagues, and it's just something for me when I go to engage with art. So yes, that's special.
Yes, yeah, it's special. I also have to say that thanks to my friends, I have a lot of friends in the art world. I've been exposed to a lot of, again, contemporary art. And it's nice. I've met some artists. It's very, for a classical musician, the repertoire used to be very rigid. So the paintings we used to love were also very rigid, sort of, impressionists and, maybe Picasso and that sort of thing. So I'm glad that my horizons have opened up, and, I know a lot of living artists, and I've always go when there's something contemporary in New York or in Miami or in Europe. I always go and see it because I think it's important, for an artist and for a musician not only to play contemporary music but also know what's going on in the art world right now.
We have a question from the audience. Let's take one of these. James from Miami has a question. Tell us about, what did he write here? Oh, it came out weird. Okay, tell us about sorry, there it is. Tell us about one of your favorite performances. Just one of your favorite performances and where you were and what made it special.
Great question. Well, as we say, every performance is our favorite, but I have to say that there are two places that feel very special to me where I perform. One of them is, of course, Carnegie Hall. It's Carnegie Hall, you're there, you made it. So I was fortunate enough to play there several times and with orchestras. And I have to say that this place, first of all, has an amazing acoustic, amazing. And what is interesting is it's not only the amazing acoustic from when you're in the audience, but when you're on stage, you hear yourself so clearly. And it's not the fact and the truth in many other wonderful halls. So that's number one. And number two, my favorite hall, the hall where I grew up as a child, where I started going from 6 years old to the concerts, and then when I ended up performing, is of course the Great Hall of Moscow Conservatory. Also one of the best acoustics in the world, both on stage and off stage. And I was really lucky that not only that I've performed there, but when I recorded my Bach concertos and my Vivaldi concertos, we recorded there at night. So the acoustic is so special. I still feel that you can be in the best studio. It could be the best acoustics, but when you're in the hall and you do a recording, not a live recording, but a real recording, where you can edit it, but in the hall, it just makes it so special. So I would say these performances really, and that recording really sort of probably sticks in my head as favorite.
Beautiful. Well, thank you for sharing that. One last question. Tell me how do you think we can move forward as an artistic community, both as individuals and as like an entire musical culture? How do we move forward in this post-COVID generation? What do you think is going to be the new look of music? And give me some thoughts.
Well, first of all, I really think that, and it's not just an empty phrase, musicians should really help each other out. Because, we know that even though we all know each other, there are certain cliques, that, I will invite this person to perform and I will not invite this person. We all know that. So I feel that at this dire circumstances, we really should try to help each other and include as many people in the performances as we can, and really invite all sorts of different people, different performances, different repertoire into our life. That's number one. Number two, as you said, I think virtual and recordings will become more important than they were before, because this is the way for people to connect with us, for us to connect with people in our audience. So that certainly will be, as I said, same as the university, there's going to be some sort of a combination first of live performances or live performances featured online even, and a performances on stage. But, I'm an optimist. I feel that we will get either the medicine or vaccine or something, and I would hope from things will slowly start sort of going back to normal. I'm hoping, I'm an optimist, but I know it's very, very hard for a lot of us, because there's really, very few live performances that we can look forward to. And again, we don't know how many people will show up, how it's going to be. So we're all in the dark here. I'm sure you agree with me in that.
I think as creative artists, we're usually optimistic. I don't think you go into this business unless you're optimistic and looking forward to creating. And but that was all very, very powerful words. And thank you so much for joining us tonight, Julia.
Thank you. It was a pleasure. It was a pleasure being, with you and with your program. I'm looking forward to your new programs with our colleagues. And I hope that we can invite our audience to the concert soon, one day soon, right?
I hope to keep this going as a conversation, and we can promote each other's work, and we can talk about what we're up to, and the innovations we're making, that we're not just talking about how we're home and we're wishing we were performing, but soon enough we will be performing again, and find that keep that passion, keep that energy, keep practicing, keep making these connections. I think it's really important that in this time of isolation, many of us are working on the next chapter, and these are going to be the concepts and the collaborations that impact the artistic worlds for the next couple of years. I agree with you. I think it's very important to kind of get past
all the disappointments and start preparing, for the future projects, and in whichever form they may be.
Well, thank you very much, Julia. Good night, and make sure you subscribe
Thank
to
you.
Julia's channel and view her work, and make sure you listen to her wonderful playing and follow her as her career grows. Thank you, Julia.
Thank you and goodbye.
Good night.
Bye.
Thank you so much for joining us tonight on Music Matters 2020 with Jason Tramm. Make sure you subscribe to us on YouTube. Hit that bell for the most current information on upcoming guests and topics. Also, like us on Facebook, and consider becoming a Patreon patron, as music has hit the arts so difficultly and so hard these days. Make sure you support the artists you love, and also help us support this show. This is a labor of love that I produce from the basement of my home with my son Quentin and my daughter Rosalind, and we're delighted to have them here with us tonight. Thank you so much to Julia, and I look forward to our next show on Thursday, which we call Unrolling the Toilet Paper Diva. Christina Major, an acclaimed soprano who has become a YouTube and internet sensation with her. She is the toilet paper diva, as you're going to see, so you're not going to want to miss that. She had over 500,000 views on Facebook and 61,000 on YouTube, so make sure you tune in. Thank you so much, and keep music alive.